You have stumbled upon an unusual signal. A transmission so different that it might have you questioning everything you think you know about the world around you. These frequencies are intermittent and unforgiving. They bring us the dark tales of folklore, the stories that fade into the night and creep back up to us in our dreams. This is Vast Unknown Radio, where what you're listening to may not be what you're hearing. We've got the transmitter powered up. The antenna appears to be tuned and aligned, and that amplifier, it's still humming. Throughout the entirety of folklore, we encounter creatures that are presented to us as an amalgamation of ourselves and other familiar animals. There is the noble centaur of Greek mythology. Half human and half horse, these beings are often depicted as fleet-footed archers, a cavalry in the purest form. We are enchanted with tales of mermaids, half human and half fish-like beings that have guided the paths of sailors throughout the centuries. We're even thrown into a maze of confusion and forced to face off with the mighty Minotaur, a beast with the head of a bull and the body of a man. These well-known creatures are the things of fantasy and the wild imaginings of storytellers long past. But what if I suggested that as recent as 2021, well-funded researchers around the world were working both day and night, trying and succeeding in creating their own modern-day chimeras? Would we regard this as scientific genius? The future of medical advancement, perhaps? Or outright abomination? Tonight we pull back the curtain on the fascinatingly gruesome topic of real-life human-animal hybrid experimentation. What's real and what's not? And while we're at it, let's take time to consider what drives humanity to twist the natural world into its own altered creation. Before we get started, I'd like to remind the listener that while I attempt to keep these transmissions as family and societally friendly as possible, sometimes the topics of esoterica play to the baser instincts of humanity. No conversation into human-animal hybridization can start without the mention of Russian and later Soviet biologist Ilya Ivanovich Ivanov. From 1910 and up until his death in exile in 1932, Ivanov devoted his scientific studies to interspecific hybridization of animals, namely combining human and ape biology through a process of artificial insemination. Ivanov was considered a master in the field of artificial insemination due to his work with thoroughbred horses. He had single-handedly revolutionized the horse breeding industry throughout the world. He manufactured breeding stock that became world champions in countless countries. He brokered his success at the stockyards into a career in which he promoted his seemingly bizarre ambitions. In the 1910 World Congress of Zoologists in Graz, Austria, he laid out a presentation articulating the possibility of a human-ape hybrid. As radical as this might sound, his ideas were met with wide-ranging enthusiasm. And in the 1920s, he inseminated 3 chimpanzees with human male reproductive material. Though none of his experiments were successful, Ivanov was undeterred, and he traveled to Africa to obtain apes for a second phase of his research. It's important to note that this was not some secretive project or anything akin to the island of Dr. Moreau. Instead, Ivanov's work had the full backing of the Bolshevik government, and during breaks in his travels, support from the Pasteur Institute in Paris, France. Coincidentally, it was while working with the prestigious Pasteur Institute that Ivanov worked with Paris surgeon Sergei Voronov on procedures that included what was referred to as rejuvenation therapy. This was a pleasant term for the procedure that included grafting ape testes onto those elite, rich human men who could afford it. This was done in order to allegedly increase, quote, their vigor. As it turns out, the ongoing Bolshevik Revolution and lead up to global war made it somewhat difficult to procure live ape specimens from Africa. Therefore, in March of 1926, Ivanov traveled to French Guiana, where he sought to conduct his research closer to the resource that he required. While stationed on the African continent, Ivanov was consistently running into obstacles. The research station, which he co-opted for his experiments, was sorely understaffed, and sourcing mature apes for biological material became increasingly difficult. In a last-ditch effort to save his scientific endeavor, Ivanov came to the gruesome conclusion that he would need to inseminate local African women without their consent. In a stroke of luck for the innocent, the Bolshevik Revolution back home caused Ivanov to run out of funding, and he made the fateful decision to abandon the facility in Africa. He relocated to the Soviet Republic of Abkhazia, where he found 5 Soviet women volunteers willing to be artificially inseminated with ape genetic material, namely that of an orangutan named Tarzan. The ape arrived in Abkhazia too frail for the experimentation, and died shortly thereafter. Here, yet another circumstance of cosmic luck prevented Ivanov from following through with his maniacal plan. The coming months saw the Soviet purge of scientists sweep across the countryside, and Ilya Ivanovich Ivanov was exiled to Alma-Ata until his death in 1932. The 1920s appeared to be a time that was ripe with scientific experimentation into the realm of human-animal hybridization. Next, we have the wholly unsubstantiated story of Gordon Gallup, who, in 2009, claimed that he had been entrusted with a dark secret. Gallup alleged that an elder scientist had confided in him that, back in the 1920s, a human-ape hybrid had been developed, brought to term, and birthed at the Primate Research Center in Orange Park, Florida, in the United States. It is said that the artificially inseminated female chimpanzee birthed a child without incident. The story goes that the hybrid was alive for, quote, a few days or a few weeks, before its life was terminated by the very scientists who brought it into existence. The reason for the euthanasia is attributed to a sudden onset of a moral dilemma, which of course seems to have been non-existent during the prior alleged 9 months. While there is no true veracity to this story, it seems odd that a researcher of Gallup's renown would make up such a story from whole cloth. It is far more likely that he was simply recounting what he had been told and perpetuating an urban myth surrounding the research station. The unusual name of the research station didn't help. Being called the Anthropoid Breeding and Experimentation Station of Orange Park, Florida, is somewhat questionable. It's understanding that a facility with such a name could foster such a legend. So let's move away from the realm of urban myth back to fully documented research experiments that took place as recently as 2017 and 2019, and yes, officially published in 2021. These papers document the experiments of Spanish researchers working out of Yunnan Key Laboratory of the Primate Biological Research Center in Kunming, China. Due to the relaxed restrictions on such experiments, the lab permitted the development of a rudimentary human-pig hybrid under the guise of developing these creatures as hosts for human organs that would be designed for transplant. However, the 2017 human-pig hybrids were not considered a viable success, due to the low level of 1 human cell for every 100,000 pig cells. The researchers were undeterred, and moved forward once again into human-monkey hybrid experimentation. In 2019, the lab used long-tailed macaques for their hybridization. This time, 132 embryos containing 110 animal cells each were individually injected with 25 reprogrammed human pluripotent stem cells. 19 days later, these embryos developed and reached the size of 10,000 cells, of which 700, or 7%, were human. At this stage, the experiment was allegedly terminated. At the time, this success was considered the most significant in the field. It far exceeded the work of Pierre Savate's scientific team, whose success rate with similar hybridization was a scant 10 human cells for every 250 monkey cells, or in his case, 4% human. Either way, it's clear that the merging of mankind with our kindred in the animal kingdom is not the thing of fantasy or fiction. It's easy to conclude that similar research and physical experimentations continue undeterred. Keep in mind that the ones that I'm referring to here are the ones that are published. These are the ones that we actually know about. So as we move through the new millennium, it grows ever more apparent that the aim of humanity is to continue to exert our dominance over every other species on our little blue-green planet. No longer do rogue scientists need to hide out in research facilities and concern themselves with the physical reproduction between two species in their efforts to conjoin them into something new and perhaps seemingly more advanced than the current version of ourselves. These days, researchers can mix cells in vials, tubes, and dishes and bring forth all manner of creation, a right that was originally reserved to Mother Nature herself. We're always of the opinion that we can do better because, after all, we know better, right? But history has proven that humanity, at its best, is unkind even within the realm of our own species. If we were the creators of something entirely new, there exists a potential for brutality and subjugation that the world has scantly seen. We, after all, would be gods to this new species, a species that would owe its entire existence to us. There is certainly no mystery what we, as so-called humanity, would do with that kind of power. I suggest that it would probably be unpleasant, to say the very least. So that concludes our transmission for this evening. Let us close with this reminder. Science cuts two ways, of course. Its products can be used for both good and evil. Vast Unknown Radio is written, curated, and produced by me. My research assistant is Gypsy. On the soundboard, well, that's DJ Chainsaw Massacre. Special thanks to co.ag Music. Tune in next time for more tales of the esoteric and the unusual. And maybe, just maybe, our signals will cross again. Thanks for listening. This has been Vast Unknown Radio.